Okay, so we're going to have 3 videos for Lecture 4, Part 2. First video will be adding and subtracting rational polynomials. Then we'll do one for polynomial long division and one for our synthetic division. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Adding and subtracting rational polynomials. Basically, rational polynomials are we're going to have fractions, but the denominators are going to include x's. That's what makes them rational polynomials. Okay, so first thing is, when we try to add fractions together, okay, and I'm talking like when you guys first got fractions, when you tried to add, let's say 4 plus 1/6, okay, we could not add those together because they did not have a common denominator, right? So, can I add these two together up here? Do they have the same denominator? No, they don't. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to find that common denominator, all right? So if I go back down here to my example where I have 1/4 and I have 1/6, okay, I'm trying to get a common denominator. Some of you guys might be able to look at that and be like, oh, it's the common denominator is 12. Some of you guys might not. The easiest way to figure out what the common denominator is to factor 4 using our factor tree, which makes it 2 times 2. And same with our 6. Well, 6 is a 2 and a 3. Okay? So I've got 1 over 2 over 2 and 1 over 2 times 3. Okay? So what I would do is I would look. I'd have a 2 and a 2 on this side. Well, I need this 3. So I would multiply by 3 over here, which means I have to do the same to the top, correct? Then I'd look over here and I'd see I got 1, 2, and I've got a 3. Well, I need to have 2 2s, so I'm going to need another 2 over here. And again, if I do it to the bottom, I have to do it to the top as well. Okay? When I do that, I end up getting that this is 3 on top, because 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6 times 2 is 12. Plus 1 times 2 is 2. Over 2 times 3 is 6 times 2 is 12. Okay? And now I have my common denominator so I can add. Okay? So we're going to follow all of those same steps when we do these problems, adding our rational polynomials together. My first step is going to be to factor the bottom and factor the bottom. Once I do that, I'm going to look at those and I'm going to figure out, okay, what factors are they missing? What factors do I need to multiply by on each side? I will tell you guys right now, you cannot go, okay, I'm going to add 3x, add 3x. I'm going to subtract by 3 to make that a negative. Oh, no, I could add 3. I'm going to add 3 and add 3. You can't do that. That's not it. You have to multiply. And before we can even do that, we have to factor before we know what we have to multiply by. So our first step is x squared plus 3x plus 2. So 1 times 2 gives me 2. Factors of 2 that would add to give me 3. Well, 1 and 2 would add. So I've got x squared plus 1x plus 2x plus 2. I know they're both plus signs because their signs have to be the same, so they're both going to need to be pluses. I can pull out an x. I'm left with an x plus 1. I can pull out a 2, and it's a positive 2, and I'm left with x plus 1. So this factors to x plus 1 times x plus 2. So my first one that I've got here becomes 1 over x plus 1 times x plus 2. Plus, I've got a 1 over x squared minus 1. Okay? Now, x squared minus 1 is one that we're just going to look at, and we should recognize, oh, hey, that's a difference of squares. So I'm going to have 1's a plus, 1's a minus. The first part of this is x. And then the last one, square root of 1, would just give me a 1. Okay? So I'm going to look. I'm ready to get a common denominator now. So I'm going to look at this. Okay, this one has an x plus 1. This one has an x plus 1. So we're good. This one has an x plus 2. This one does not. So I need to multiply by x plus 2 on this side. This one over here has an x minus 1. This one does not. So I need to multiply by an x minus 1 on this side. And now you guys can see they both have an x minus 1. They both have an x plus 1. And they both have an x plus 2. So now they're going to have common denominators. Okay? Now, don't forget, though, if we multiply by x plus 2 on the bottom, we have to multiply by x plus 2 on the top. And same over here. If I multiply by x minus 1 on the bottom, I have to multiply by x minus 1 on the top. Okay? So I'm going to have 1 times x minus 1 on top plus 1 times x plus 2. Okay? And that's all on one fraction now, because remember, when I get a common denominator like I did, we can write those as one denominator. We can add those together. Okay? So I've got 1 times x minus 1 plus 1 times x plus 2. And then my bottom is just an x minus 1 times x plus 1 times x plus 2. Okay? I combined them into one fraction, and I was able to do that because I had a common denominator. Now that I've done this here, I'm going to look to distribute. Well, 1 into there, that's easy. That's just an x minus 1. Okay? This one over here, the reason that I like you guys to show this step is because sometimes this will be a minus sign here, and we forget that if that's a minus sign, we have to distribute the minus as well. Okay? So this is positive 1 times x, so I've got a plus x. Positive 1 times 2 gives me a plus 2, and that is over x minus 1 times x plus 1 times x plus 2. Okay? Don't cancel at this step down here. A lot of people want to cancel. You can't do that. You can only cancel factors. And everything up top here, these are all terms, so I cannot cancel anything. Okay? A lot of people want to cancel those x plus 2s and those x minus 1s. That does not work. Okay? So don't do that. The only thing you can do is you combine like terms on top. So I've got an x and a positive x, which gives me 2x. And I've got a negative 1 and a positive 2, which gives me a positive 1. So the top is 2x plus 1. The bottom is x minus 1 times x plus 1 times x plus 2. And that's our answer. That's how we add those together. Okay? Next slide then. This one is subtraction. Go ahead and pause this one. Try it on your own. Okay? See how you do. Okay? So starting out, since this is subtraction, we still don't do anything different. Our first step is still two factors. So x squared plus 5x plus 6. I need factors of 6 that add. Add to give me 5, not subtract. Okay, so 1 plus 6, that gives me 7. I'm not using 1 and 6. 2 plus 3, that gives me 5. That's what I'm going to use there. Okay, so I'm going to use 2 and 3. I got x squared, 2x, 3x, plus 6. Now, signs are the same, and they're both going to be plus signs. I can factor out an x, left with an x plus 2. I can factor out a positive 3, left with an x plus 2. So one of my factors is x plus 2. The other factor is x plus 3. So I've got x over x plus 2 times x plus 3. Minus 1 over x squared minus 4. Again, that's another difference of squares. Hopefully we're recognizing those. So this one would be an x plus an x minus. Okay, and then the square root of 4 is 2. So we've got a 2 in those spots there. Okay, right. So now I've got to get that common denominator. Okay, I'm looking. They both have x plus 2, so we're good there. This one on the left, though, does not have an x minus 2, so we're going to need to multiply by an x minus 2 over here. Okay, the one on the right does not have an x plus 3, so I'm going to need to multiply by an x plus 3 on this one. Okay, now if I look, they all have an x plus 2, they both have an x plus 3, they both have an x minus 2, so they have that common denominator now. Don't forget to multiply on the top as well. Okay, not just on the bottom, it also goes on the top. Okay, so I'm going to end up with an x times x minus 2 minus a 1 times x plus 3. And that's all over x plus 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 2. Okay, again, don't try and cancel here. Those are parts of terms. Okay, I'm going to take an x times an x, gives me an x squared, and x times a negative 2 gives me a negative 2x. And this is, again, this is why I like to show this step there so that you guys don't forget. I'm going to distribute a negative 1 into both. So that becomes negative 1 times x is a negative x. Negative 1 times 3 gives me a negative 3. Okay, that's over x plus 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 2. Combine my like terms on top. I've got x squared minus 3x minus 3 all over x plus 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 2. Okay. Now, I might be able to simplify this. I need to look, this top part here, can I factor? Well, I've got 1 times 3. I need factors of 3 that would subtract to give me 3. Are there any factors of 3 that subtract to give me 3? Well, the only factors of 3 are 3 and 1, and 3 minus 1 gives me 2. So no, they're not. So that's not even factorable up top. So that's my final answer. Okay. Next video we do will be going over polynomial long division.